Okay, so in this interview, we have a very special treat. We have Rana Vig. So one of the things I think this is really interesting is who we're talking to right now has been involved in raising over $500 million, was very successful in the cannabis industry with some of the biggest companies, public companies in the world, involved in billions of dollars of business in a hot theme, which was cannabis. As we know, there was a lot of money flowing into it. And one of the things as a gold and silver investor I found very interesting is very big players in the business world, such as this individual we're speaking with, who has come back to his mining roots and has seen this incredible opportunity in gold and silver, coupled with what's going on in the financial system and where we might be able to head with mining stocks and gold and silver prices. And so it's always exciting to talk to very successful executives that have a history of spotting very popular trends before they get going. And so it's nice to talk to you and hear what's going on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. You're too kind with all those with that great introduction there.
Well, I think it's important because there is still a segment of people that don't understand what's happening. And then there's individuals like you who've done really well in other industries, and you see the financial potential. You see a lot of people that had 0% allocation in their folders now saying, wow, this is an incredible opportunity. You had Warren Buffett come around. So what is your sentiment right now on the gold and silver market and what's going on and where you think it's going? As of right now, we're back below where we were, but we were up above 2,000. And where do you think we can take this market?
Oh, we're just starting, man. You're right. I mean, these are natural gyrations of the market. This is, it's just like stocks. It's going to go up and down a little bit. And in fact, if you look at it back in 08, 09, 10, 11, when it had that last big run and made a record, the exact same thing happened, right? It retracts first. It's got to, builds a bit of a base, and then boom, off it goes, right? So this is nothing unusual. But look, we are in the most exciting time that I can ever think of to be in this space, right? From a mining perspective. And you said earlier, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I mean, I'm not a miner. I'm not a geologist. I'm not an engineer of any sort, right? I just try to be the dumbest guy in the room for any industry that I get involved with, and just surround myself around with the brightest minds. And the same thing that I've done here. And everyone that I'm talking to in the industry is saying the same thing, right? That this is an unprecedented time. The governments all around the world, not just in Canada and the United States, but all around the world, are printing money at an unprecedented rate. I mean, it's just crazy. It's like they bought an ink plant or something, right? They just want to keep on printing this. And that's an environment that gold loves. So 100%, we have nowhere but up to go.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about and that I always try to do in the interviews is I try to learn as much as I have a really unique opportunity to talk to some very successful people. And so one of the questions that you kind of alluded to that I want to go into a little bit more is kind of the future and the biggest problems that myself, you, and the viewer face, whoever is listening to this, from protecting our wealth and saving. So what are those things that are a threat to our livelihood, our savings, our investments, our wealth? You kind of spoke on it a little bit more, but in a little bit more detail, what would you say are these biggest ways that are stopping our wealth, and of course, the best ways to protect it?
Irresponsible government, right? That's the number one thing, right? And, because let me give a news flash to your audience and yourself, right? If they don't know, governments lie. Okay, all the time. They try to fool us, right? And it's crazy. And, they keep telling us all this along that, everything is okay. And, you go to the store or you go to a movie and you just realize that, boy, the dollar just isn't going that far. I mean, why? People are wondering, why am I broke all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And the challenge is that the currency has been devalued constantly, right? Artificially keeping the interest rates low, printing money. This is nothing new, by the way. The big one started really in 08, 09, right? The new term, quantitative easing, right? That was around $800 billion they pumped in the market. Well, guess what? I think I was reading the other day, we're like approaching 3 trillion now. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's QE forever, right? So what you're alluding to is that what's happening is that as they print more and more. I mean, remember, the piece of paper, the dollar, right, had value only because it was backed by something. Right? What is it backed by now? So ever since everyone went off the gold standard, it really, what is it backed by? What, just that the government says that it's worth this, and hey, don't worry, we're going to back you up if you go somewhere, and so they give it that value. So it's the value of it is decreasing more and more, and the more money they print. I mean, we have seen nothing yet, right? In my opinion, we are in the first inning. It's sad, by the way. I mean, this is nothing to be that excited about, unless of course we are in the precious metals. And what can we do, right? I mean, you and me can't go out there, Jake, and change the world, right? All we can do is protect ourselves and protect our families, right? By being responsible, and I think understanding these basic concepts and then doing something about it, and making sure that we get into some of these hard assets to preserve our wealth.
And for the people that grasp that, why gold, why now? Let's go there. Why gold, why now? And when I say gold, I mean gold, silver, mining stocks. Why gold, why now?
Well, it's as I mentioned earlier. I mean, look, you've got to figure out a way to preserve wealth. North Americans are a little bit unique, where they don't think about gold, or now they are with Warren Buffett and some of the big institutions starting to come into gold and silver. But traditionally, people don't really think about that much about gold out here that I find. But look at around the world, right? Whether it's China or whether it's look at India, for example, right? India has, from birth, it's ingrained in you, right? It's you're taught that the value of, you got to preserve, you got to keep a little bit of gold. Even the poorest of the poorest person in India, they could be living in a little tent, okay, not have a home, but they'll own some gold and silver, even down to a little bit of they might only have a couple of grams. Villages pool their money in order to make sure that they have some gold, okay? So, and culturally and traditionally, when a young lady, marries, the family traditionally gives her some gold, some jewelry in the form of jewelry. Now, jewelry in India isn't, 10 karat or 14 karat. It's the real deal. It's the real thing, right? And the reason they do that is because they know that's how you make sure that you preserve something for a rainy day. So North Americans, I think, are starting to, get that. And look, it doesn't take it's not rocket science, right? When I was growing up in the 70s, my dad was a civil engineer. Okay, he made about $45,000 a year. Our first home that we bought was about $45,000. Today, that same civil engineer makes around $85,000. But Jake, well, guess what the house costs here? Over $1 million.
Wow.
Right? I mean, it's crazy. So, but guess what? Gold back then was what? $20, $25, right? The same piece of metal, the same 1 ounce today is almost 2,000. So, it's not really that complicated when you sit down and think about it. Why you say, why gold and why now? You got to preserve wealth. Why now? Because this is unprecedented. When in our lifetimes can we think of a time when governments were printing this money at this speed, okay, in this frequency? When can we think of a time at the same time around the world there were riots and civil unrest? And at the same time, when can you think of a perfect trifactor? Okay, there's a world pandemic. 3 things happening at the same time. Yeah. This is the environment that gold loves, and that's why I believe that we are just getting started here.
Yeah, it's hard for me to even describe it as just getting started, because before, right, they were able to kind of convince everyone they were going to unwind the balance sheets. Everybody knows this is going to get to more and more extremes now. So it is a very exciting time. So let me ask you, do you have in your own head concepts or predictions of where you think the price of gold and silver could go over the next, say, decade?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, to just finish that thought, it's also because we're addicted, right, to this QE now, right? And what does an addict need, right? An addict always needs more and more to sustain that same level. And that's what's happening over here, right? The governments need to pump more and more back into the economy to prop it up, right? Because they're spineless, right? They can't tell the truth. Hey, it's bad, man. We got to fix it. No, it's easier for them to just keep printing, keep dishing out the money to everybody, so that they can get reelected, right? That's the unfortunate thing, right? In this whole scheme of things. Where can it go? Look, a lot smarter people than me, all right, who have tremendous amount of research at their fingertips, are talking. Certainly, like Bank of America just projected $3,000 gold next year, right? So I definitely see. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever go to 50,000 and some of these crazy numbers that some people talk about. Could it? Absolutely. But I definitely see gold in the 3,000 range next year. And I suspect in the next 2 to 3 years, I would see it at around the $5,000 mark. And again, because I just don't see the quantitative easing and the printing of money. They're relentless, right? I don't see them stopping that. And this COVID isn't going away anytime soon, right? So I think all those factors are going to push gold to incredible highs.
Yeah, it's exciting, and definitely as you learn more and more, and you see gold and silver are undervalued for how much debt we have and where we were just in 2011. But then when you look at the mining stocks, they're so undervalued, it's silly. And so it's exciting to an investor like myself. And for those listening, I am an investor in your company, Blue Lagoon. And one of the reasons one of the reasons that I like it a lot is you have an exposure to silver. I have the majority of my money is in silver. Both in my physical components and in my mining stocks. My portfolio is heavily favored towards either pure silver miners or companies that at least have and will benefit from strong leverage over the price rise in silver, which I believe is going to go very high, especially when we factor in the industrial demand and such. Care to share a little bit more about Blue Lagoon and the potential that you have with the available silver that you have, and what you kind of see in the works when you look at the market right now and our world right now and everything we talked about, and then you look at potential vehicles for investors to explore to protect their wealth?
Well, sure. So no wonder I can see now why you're a shareholder, because we have currently at our main vein at our current mine, we have a little over 4-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 ounce of gold, we have a little over 4 ounces of silver, right? So that's kind of exciting. Yeah. Which actually, not a lot of people in my position, looked at silver very, they just that it was gold. All our costs were based on the gold, right? Because when we ship it off to the mill, it's not that like the mill says, hey, we're going to charge you this much for gold and this much for the silver, right? It's all the costs are based on basically you look at our costs on gold, and the rest of the silver is is a bonus. So that's kind of exciting. But now with silver, in the mid 20s, and thought leaders like Eric Sprott are projecting it to be somewhere $50 to $100, right? So I don't know if it ever will get there, but wherever it goes, higher than this, it's a bonus for companies like ours, right? Which is fantastic, pays all our bills and more, right? Adds to the bottom line. But Blue Lagoon is a relatively new company. I put it together a little over a year ago. Everybody thought I was crazy because, I had just come off of a couple of very big wins in the cannabis space. And they thought I was crazy getting into mining. But I saw an opportunity, having reading everything that was happening around the world. And we picked up this project called Doan Mountain. Just about 6 months ago. So it's quite new, for us. And we were very excited about it. And to be honest with you, look, I'm not that smart, man. I just work hard, okay? And it just, I was just at the right place at the right time. These people had put in $28 million into this project just over the last dozen years. $40 million before that had been spent by, with the previous operators. And they just ran out of time. And what I mean by that is their age caught up to them. They're now 83 years old and not in the best of health. And they got it literally to the 1 yard line because the mine is fully permitted. It only needs 3 key things, which are not onerous. It's only about $1 million US, a little over $1 million US, about $1.5 million Canadian, and about a 4 to 6 month process, which we've already started to get that permission to recommence mining again. So that's very exciting for what we have. But beyond that, we have 15 already known high-grade gold veins on the property. So we don't have to go hunting for them, searching for them, spend all sorts of money, and waste time. We already know, where they are. So then these guys never explored them further because their focus was, they were a private company, and their focus was simply to get into mining, get the mine into production. Unfortunately, they were in the last 10 years, they were at the wrong, time at the wrong place because gold, of course, was $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, and there was just no momentum, with that, right?
Right.
So we have that. And then the last piece of what we're excited about is 90% of the property is unexplored. So we have a permitted mine. We have 15 high-grade gold veins, which we're going to be chasing here very soon here, designing our program right now. And we have 90% of the property that is never been explored. We're fully funded. We just closed a $7.5 million financing. We have no debt. So it's a great place to be because it allows someone like myself to focus, and execute on the plan now.
Yeah, it's interesting to have no debt, especially because the mining industry is so cyclical and expensive, and there's a lot of the bigger producers that have been around that maybe they had to take on a lot of debt during the really down years that we just came out of. And so it's attractive to me as an investor also because you have the no debt component. And then also on top of that, like the thing that people don't really understand as a business owner, I can't think as a business owner that is not in the gold and silver industry, I am as an investor, I can't think of a better industry where I don't have to do anything, but my assets keep going up in price without me doing something. And it's kind of a nice double whammy between the lack of debt. And then as we see the price rise, obviously the value of what you own continues to rise. So let me ask you though, you said you've got the permits and all these things. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much of a crapshoot a lot of companies are because it's just an exploration pipe dream. And so it's exciting when you find a company that has a lot of gold and has a lot of silver, has the permits, is ready to rock and roll. Do you consider yourself a near-term producer, or when are you looking at the production aspect of the company? Or if not, what is your exit plan with the company over the next 10 years, hopefully of a bull run?
Yeah, no, listen, we absolutely consider ourselves a potential near-term producer because, again, it takes almost 20 years from beginning to end, right? To get a property, to start finding something on it, to go through the permitting process, the environmental process, the First Nation sign off, all those things take a long time. And that's what I'm saying is that we're so fortunate, right? That we are there. These guys literally got it to the 1 yard line, right? There's a lot of money that's been spent on it already. So yeah, I mean, we're working on those amendments as we speak. It's my anticipation that by early next year, by early to mid next year, we'll be in a position to go to the regulators and show them everything that we've done. Hey, we can check all the boxes that you asked us to check off, and hopefully be in a position to make a decision to go into production. And then of course, beyond that, how do you increase the value as you alluded to, right? One is of course just the price of gold going up, and we just sit back and say, wow, that's fantastic. The assets getting value is getting higher and higher, but also it's just executing the plan, right? So as your investor got in today, right, you said you're a shareholder, so you must have been a shareholder recently. So now we're not in production, we haven't done much of the exploration, but as we move towards that, and as we do more exploration, as we expand everything that we have, obviously the value is going to go up as well, right? And the beauty of it, earlier you asked about why gold and why now, why mining stocks and why now is kind of the flip side of that, right? I'm sure you realize if you go back and look at when the gold had the last run, the beauty is when gold goes up by this much, the junior miners go up by that much, right? I mean, there's a multiplier effect, right? Which is super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I ask you a couple other questions, so you guys are on, for those interested, you're on the Canada situation, and you're also for people that, for say are in America and they don't have access to the Toronto markets, you're also on the OTC.
That's correct. In Canada, we are on the Canadian Securities Exchange, so we trade under the symbol BLLG, and in the US, we trade under the symbol BLAGF. Okay,
so we got macro covered. We've got why gold, why now, why mining stocks right now. We've talked about your vehicle and the opportunities that presented in that. But when we look at right now in the world, there's obviously, I'm sure it's all over Canada as well, which is quite amazing, is the conversation of Trump and Biden, right? And it's everywhere. Trump, Biden, Trump, Biden, Trump, Biden. Do you think that the gold price has either more to lose with someone or more to gain with someone? Do you think that the gold price doesn't care? What do you think about what's coming up? Because it kind of seems like everything's been kind of on hold and everyone's just watching what's happening. Like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Does gold price really care?
I don't think gold cares. Let me tell you why. I think if Trump gets reelected again, I think you have continued unrest. Because of his style, right? I think you have continued unrest, which gold loves. Of course, you have continued printing of money because he wants to shine, right? He always wants to have good news and make sure everything's going. And the only way he can do that is by, getting people, back to work. And so he's got to, spend all sorts of money in order to keep the economy going. Of course, it keeps pressuring to make sure the interest rates are kept low. So that's an environment gold loves. You get Biden, when, they're obviously socialists, they're left leaning, and they're going to want to give even more money out, for
Right.
social programs, et cetera. So either way, right, either party, they're going to have to keep printing money. They're going to, because COVID, unfortunately, is not going away anytime soon. All right. So I don't think gold cares who wins.
Yeah, and I think it's well said. And I think it's what people don't really understand is both parties are doing the same debt-based growth and free money no matter what. One might do more here and one might do more there, but neither party is going to address the United States debt. And if you want an idea of it, all you got to do is go to usdebtclock.org and you can watch it spin faster than you can count. And I think it's important to keep in mind because my personal opinion is it seems right now everyone's kind of in this phase where everyone's looking what's going to happen. Are there going to be more lockdowns? Is there going to be an economic crash? Who's going to win? And I think the benefit of that right now is once the election's solved, I personally think you're going to see gold, silver, and mining stocks really take off no matter who wins. And it's kind of this nice opportunity because there's a lot of people sitting on their hands right now. So I think there's some good prices and some good deals out there. Do you agree with that?
And yes, and listen, a lot of players are getting involved, right? Warren Buffett, of course, just recently, right, for the first time ever, right? He's always been against gold. Always has said, don't like it. Well, suddenly here he's made a big investment, in a gold mining company for the first time, right? You've got the Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund, right? Just recently announced they're going to allocate 5% of their portfolio to allocate that to gold for the first time ever. So many will, right? You always need that first sort of person to set the pace, right? To set the mark. And institutions, right? Institutions right now, we talked about silver earlier. I mean, the list just goes on and on, right? I mean, Barclays, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, right? It just goes on and on. All these players, for the first time, if you read the 13 Fs, the last quarterly filings, these are all institutions that for the first time have invested in silver. So all of these things are going to drive the gold market, the gold price, the silver price higher because everyone's going to be talking about it, right?
So it's amazing point, and it is interesting to see because it's like, man, there's so many mainstream financial institutions and investors that are seeing the opportunity. When I said at the beginning of the intro, one of the reasons I was interested in talking to you was for that reason too, because you were in another industry, you were crushing it, and you saw the opportunity. And it's the same pattern. You're seeing so many people saying, man, this is really catching my eye, whether it's you, whether it's Warren Buffett, whether it's institutions, whether it's pension funds. And then I look at the overall macro, and one thing nobody talks about is, of course, the pension and 401k crisis that's going to happen in Canada and America, and the whole retirement crisis. So let me ask you, before and historically, gold and silver is always very cyclical. There's a high peak, and then boom, if you don't time it right, then you could lose all your profits you had or whatnot. And then it's kind of always went back to the unloved family member in the closet for a while, and it comes out every 10 years. So with how much is going on, and to yourself, someone who's an analyst, someone who's really looking at the financials and the business opportunity of it, do you believe that this is going to be a longer lasting bull market with higher highs, but also more sustained gains and an opportunity to be more involved either in the monetary system or the regular investment conversation? Or are you looking at this like another short window? Do you think this, what do you see?
No, I definitely see this as one of the longer runs that we have, and again, it's because of all the factors that we've been talking about. I mean, it's an unprecedented time, right? I mean, for all these things to come together at the same time, and I just don't see how this is going to turn, right? Look. People. Sometimes my colleagues, my friends, some of the people who are not necessarily in the industry will talk about, say, look, this seems a very complicated situations. They're not. It's a very basic, a fundamental fact, right? Look at your household, right? If you have X amount of income that you're making, right? But you're spending more money than you're making. Well, that's a pathway to be going broke, right? Then on top of that, just because you want to look good in front of your, I don't know, your friends or right? your kids or what have you, right? And you go and you borrow some from Bob, and then you borrow some from Kathy, and you borrow a little bit more from Joe. At some point, you got to pay them back. Right. So if you don't pay them back, right, what's going to happen? You're going to go broke. You're going to, everything's going to implode on you. It's going to look great while you have the money, which is not really yours. Governments are no different. Right. I mean, do you know of any business that the government's in? How are they making any money? Right. We're the business. Right. They're getting it from us. Right. All the time. And they keep jacking it up higher and higher. Right. The taxes and everything else. So, it's just this. Look, in my opinion, these are the times when generational wealth is created, right? Because you've got a trend, you've got momentum. When I got in the cannabis industry, a lot of people were saying, "Hey, you know what? Really, you think everybody's going to be? This is going to get legalized at some point? Everyone's gonna smoke pot? No, everyone's not going to smoke pot. But guess what? Remember prohibition? See, people have a short memory, right? There was prohibition in Canada and the United States at one point, a number of years ago. And alcohol sales, weren't allowed. But guess what happened? Alcohol today is one of the biggest industries on the planet. Cannabis is the same thing. But you got to have the ability to see the opportunity just before it's about to take off, right? So right now, that's where we are with the precious metals, right? Everyone's talking about it. Everyone can see, hey, the dollar is getting weaker and weaker. So the only way to do it is by some sort of hard assets. Could be real estate, could be gold, could be silver, but you got to be in some hard asset outside of the piece of paper. That's the bottom line, right? And the only reason junior miners are become good, obviously, I think we're a great company, but there's others as well, right? And that investors should really take a serious look at companies like ours and others is because the multiplier effect, right? Because you can only buy so much physical gold, right? But as the gold price goes up, as we talked about earlier, by 1 point, let's call it, typically, historically, junior miners go up by tenfold. Right? I mean, that's typically what's happened. Now we can't predict if it's going to happen again, but historically, that's what's happened, and there's no reason why it wouldn't happen again now, right?
Yeah, and it really is. It's this weird paradox to be in, where you look at it and you go, "My gosh, why doesn't everyone see this opportunity?" Then you get people like Warren Buffett, then seeing the pensions do that is like, man. But then you look at companies and you go, "How is, whether it's Blue Lagoon or whomever it is, there's so many great junior miners. Your company's on the OTC like 62 cents or 69 cents, and it's like." It's such a good opportunity, but then people see the price go backwards in gold a little bit. So for those people listening, kind of in conclusion, for someone that's, then they see the price of gold going down and we've consolidated for a month and they're starting to get a little nervous. Yeah. Can you speak to where we're at right now and in that sentiment that I know a lot of investors have?
Well, look, the key here is you got to be an investor, right? Not a trader, right? A trader, goes in and out, with the markets, right? Look, I invested in my own company, in Blue Lagoon Resources. I put $300,000 in at $1. Okay, so am I worried? Is that 60 cents or whatever it's at? Not at all, because I'm not looking at where we are today. I'm looking at where we're going to be in a year from now, in 18 months from now, in 2 years from now. That's how you do things, right? If you're in real estate, you buy a piece of land that's raw land, you subdivide it, you build value, right? You put a building on top of it, and suddenly that's how you increase the value. So same thing here, right? We have the mine, we have known veins, we have a huge property. We're in a bull market of in the precious metals. I mean, how much more perfect can it get, right? So as an investor, you have to have a slightly long-term mentality, right? I'm not talking about necessarily 10 years, but certainly a year to 2 to 3 years, right? You've got to have that long-term mentality, and you can't worry about these little gyrations. They're gold and stocks; they go up and down. I mean, that's just normal, right? But look at the trend. You have to look at the chart. Where is it? Where was it? And where is it going? Right. So that's in my opinion. Now, of course, I'm not a financial planner or anything, and everyone obviously should get their proper professional advice. But in terms of investing, you have to have certainly a medium to a long-term outlook, and not day to day what's happening in the markets.
Yeah, well said. So let me ask you in conclusion, and it's somewhere I always like to ask when I have the opportunity to talk to people that have been very successful in business. What would you say is, for someone listening to this that wants to achieve more financial success as an entrepreneur in their business or just in their household, regardless of what they do, someone like you that achieved a lot and you're around a lot of successful people, what do you think are the most important things that you learned and were able to apply, or you learned from others, that are important for us to continue to create more success in our business and in our finances and in our entrepreneurial endeavors?
I think the single greatest thing that I've learned in my life, right, is always try to surround yourself with the brightest brains, right? I mean, put your ego aside, right? Look, first thing I admit to myself is I'm dumb at almost everything. Okay, I'm stupid. All right, I want, whatever industry I get into, I want to surround myself with people who are at the top of their professions, right? I just need to be good at one or two things, right? And that's what I'm good at. I'm good at execution. I'm good at focus, right? The rest of it, you either hire or you get advice from, if they're your colleagues or your mentors. But I think that's one of the most important things. And people let their egos get in the way, right? I don't need to say that, listen, I'm the best guy or the smartest guy. I'm not. Okay. And I think once you recognize that and you surround yourself with people and you really listen, you got to be a sponge, right? You just soak the information, talk less, right? Listen more. Very basic, right? So when I get around people who are in any industry that I've been in, right, who I know are more knowledgeable, I've done a lot of talking here today, obviously, because you're asking me questions, but I don't speak much in those meetings. I listen, right? And that's where you pick up, right? You surround yourself. You got to work hard, stay humble, stay focused. And I think if you apply those things, then listen, a guy like me, right, who dropped out of university, right, much to the pain of my parents, okay, but you surround yourself with very, very bright people, and and success is around the corner if you can do that, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, well said. So let me ask you, what is something that you are grateful for or excited about right now in your life? It's one of my favorite questions at the end.
Oh, I think that just the opportunity. Look, you know what? To be living in North America, just to be thankful. We forget. You watch the news and you look at the countries around the world and what's happening. I mean, I think we are so blessed to be in this environment, and living in Canada or the United States, I think it's, despite all the issues, I know there's all sorts of issues and things are happening, but despite all that, right? You know what? And, Warren Buffett calls it the lucky sperm bank, right? I mean, why wasn't I born in, somewhere in, Turkey or Iran, or I don't, not to say that those are bad countries, by any means. I mean, obviously, what I meant to say is that, some place that the economic opportunity is limited, right? Maybe the air quality isn't there, maybe the health isn't there, right? So I'm very, very thankful that I feel very, very blessed that I'm in this amazing place and have the opportunity to excel, not just financially, but also emotionally, right? So to be at peace. I can't imagine. I have friends in Israel. I can't imagine, or people who are in Palestine. Can you imagine getting on a bus and coming back and not knowing if you're going to come back or not? I mean, how do you live like that, right? Or when I've gone to some third world countries, you see the people on the streets, how poor they are. Right? How come I'm so lucky? Here I am talking to you, right? Sitting in my nice home and, on Zoom here, right? So I think we have a lot to be thankful for. And I think that this is an incredible country, an incredible place, and an incredible time to be alive with all the technology that's happening, with the precious metals, where they're going. I just think it's just an incredible time to be alive.
Beautiful. That's well said. I think that's a great way to end. So for you listening to this video right now, please be sure to hit the like button on either the right or left side of your screen. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below, and maybe we can have him back on as a regular guest. You can leave a question down that you have for a future video, and be sure to consult with a professional. But definitely, I invite you to check out Blue Lagoon in more detail if it interests you. And thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.